In honor of our 10-year anniversary, we've linked together 10 powerful episodes featuring 10 remarkable experts from the Elite Expert Insider podcast. From best-selling authors to industry leaders, these voices have shaped our journey and inspired thousands. Here's to a decade of authority, impact, and expert insight.
What you said, we say in an interview of LA, we say bigger is not better, better is better, because just because the numbers are there doesn't mean that value that you have to offer is being valued by that audience. You have to find the right thing. And so like I said, education is typically a goal. I also think another way that podcast interview marketing differentiates from different types of marketing, say like paid ads or something like that, is that it's a conversation. So an example I like to use is think of celebrity interviews that you've seen and how sometimes if it's a particularly in-depth interview, you walk away feeling like you know that celebrity. And of course, parasocial delusion is a contributing factor to that. I don't think anybody is fully immune to that, but that's the exact thing we're actually trying to grasp onto with that. It's that human condition, because a conversation, more so than just simple content, provides a better opportunity to invoke an emotional response from the person listening to it. And an interview gives you a unique way to do that, because even if 10,000 other people are listening to that interview, you as the listener kind of feel like you're getting an exclusive, intimate look into this conversation between 2 or 3 people that other people aren't privy to, even if you know consciously they are. So you're getting that emotional response and you're proving your worth to these people too, because it's also about establishing yourself as a thought leader, right? And a conversation, similarly, gives you an opportunity to do that, because you walk the walk every day in your job, you know what you're doing, but you also have to talk the talk. And I know that's kind of counterintuitive. The phrase really it goes the other way. But if you're talking the talk, you're proving to people who maybe don't know as much about what you're doing that you know what you're talking about. And that's proving your authority. That's giving you that brand authority that other forms of marketing don't inherently provide. It's that emotional human connection.
Right. I love that. And I love it because, like you said, they get to know you and then they feel like they know, like, and trust you, even though they've never met you, because they've just been listening to you or they've been watching your YouTube, or depending on if it's a video podcast or not. So they've been seeing you or they've been listening to you in their car. They're listening to all the different episodes you've been on. I know some people who they really liked an episode and then they'll go and just find that person on all the other podcasts they've been on, right? Because they just want to know more. Like, I want to know more in depth, even though some of the interviews are similar, but not all the interviews are going to be the same because there's different hosts that are asking the question. So I love that.
And it's a mutually beneficial thing too, because that host that's inviting you on their show is providing you the platform that you want to say what you have to say, and you're providing them an episode. So it's already very beneficial that way. You're kind of scratching each other's backs in that sense. And you're getting access to their audience. And you took the words right out of my mouth. That audience is now going to look at everything else you're doing. And then that's going to open you up to even more audiences. So it's a really organic way to kind of expand your reach, especially if you are not as privy to social media. I do find in health and wellness spaces, social media tends to be not as important to people in those spaces as they are in like more businessy side. So it's an organic way to kind of build your community, if you even want to look at it like that, through the power of your words. And it differentiates you from someone else in your industry. I don't prefer to use the word competitor. I think especially in health and wellness, there's more than enough room for everybody. And just because you're a yoga instructor and she's a yoga instructor doesn't mean that you have the same target audience. You could go to the same school, you could work in the same yoga studio. That still doesn't mean that your audience is going to be the same, because it's your unique perspective and expertise that's going to set you apart from them.
Yeah, I think that's so true. I like that you mentioned, like, the same yoga teacher, the same studio has a different audience, because, we've been doing this podcast now for 10 years. And so we've been a part of a mastermind that everyone in the mastermind has a book publishing company or a marketing agency, which is what we have. And we don't feel like it's a competition because it's totally different. Like we all have different audiences because we all resonate with different people.
When I moved to LA in 2005 to pursue a career in film, it's when the entertainment industry really started to reawaken to digital after the .com bust. And while I was in college studying film, I actually started a few internet companies really just to learn and experiment. Because when I showed up to film school, I quickly realized they teach you nothing about business there. So I figured I should find out, what it takes to create and launch and manage a business. And the most cost efficient way at the time, and still holds true today, was online companies. So when I showed up in LA, I just leveraged that knowledge to really stand out. And that's, the whole point of the second book, because when I showed up and people would ask me, well, what do you want to do? And I said, well, I want to produce films. I could just see everybody's eyes glaze over, because I was one of millions of people with that. So I just leveraged that knowledge I gained in creating those internet companies to basically tell executives, directors, and producers, listen, I have this expertise. I can help you tap into these audiences and attract millions, in some cases, tens and hundreds of millions of people to pay attention to your trailers, your clips, your story, by tapping into these various traffic sources. So that's really how I got started. And I went from making coffee for these producers to starting the first digital division for the first studio I worked for in just under a year, and then just kept continuing down that path.
I mean, you did so many tests. I mean, you did really literally thousands of posts and did the metrics on them to see what was working. And the world keeps changing. My son's in the Instagram world and he's like, Mom, this worked like last month. It's not working this month. What do you do? What are you suggesting in today's climate that gets someone's attention in 30 seconds or less? Really, that's 5-10 seconds to grab them right away.
Well, the fundamentals of social content and social media haven't shifted and will not shift from the two core principles that you have to master. It's one, are you grabbing that attention in the first 3 seconds? Are you stopping the scroll? And two, once you stop the scroll and earn that attention, how long are you holding it for? Because the algorithms have one job and one job only, and that's to keep people on the platform longer. That's how they make money. So the algorithms are in search for the content that does that retains the end user as long as possible. And if you can master that, it doesn't matter what changes in the platforms or the algorithms. Like if you master those two principles, you'll ultimately be successful. So there's many different tactics and tools that you can use to do that. One is just effective narrative storytelling. Like I was just breaking down a video this morning that I found that went viral of it starts off the first 3 seconds of a boyfriend and a girlfriend texting back and forth, where the boyfriend says to the girlfriend, like, what would you want more than anything? Because she was away at college, like 1,200 miles away. And she was like, well, I would love to see you. And then the rest of the video is of him making this journey to go and see this girlfriend. So in that, it's a very simple story structure, but what it's doing is, it's grabbing your attention with this kind of text back and forth, because you don't typically see that in the first few seconds. So it captures your interest. And then secondarily, it's holding your attention because you know what's going to happen at the end. He's going to surprise her. But we want to see that reaction. What is it going to look like? What is that emotional connection going to feel like? And that's why that video went viral. And so many other videos that use powerful narrative storytelling work for that, because we're trained as early as childhood that once a story started, when we remember back to bedtime stories, or maybe you're telling your kids bedtime stories, they always want to know the ending. They want to see what's going to happen at the end. And that plays to exactly what the algorithms are looking for.
What kind of things do you need to have to be like, okay, I should have a course, or my next step is I'm going to have an online course? What kind of things do you?
That's a really good question. So a lot of times you should have a course. So one, if you're doing one-on-one coaching, so there's only one of you and there's only 24 hours in a day, a lot of times you're either burnt out, or you can't service all the clients that need you because you're still just one person that can get to one person. So it's a great way to scale your business. It's a great way to scale it without having to spend a whole lot of money. Because a lot of times when we scale, what do we have to do? We have to put a lot of money into ads and marketing to grow. And you also have to bring on a lot of new employees. But with the online course, you don't have to do either of those things. You're able to get out if you're, in Utah or California, but you're going to have clients, and I have clients in Dubai and Pakistan and in Europe and in Canada. But I'm right here still in LA, but I'm able to service them as well. I mean, you can also get to Harlem and North Dakota, like wherever you need to get to, you can get to all of those places and you can still be at home, but you're able to scale your business without having to expend a lot of money. And to me, that's just the best business model ever. So if you're running into a crunch where you don't have a lot of time for your clients, or if you just, a lot of times, sometimes people will come to me and they do one-on-one coaching, but those people can't afford them one-on-one. Well, hey, you can, instead of leaving money on the table, you can tell them like, hey, you can't afford that. That's okay. I got a whole course where I'm going to walk you step by step by step, just like I'm teaching you in real time, but it's for a fraction of the cost. People would love to do that. So those are the people that I think should be creating courses. If you're running out of time, or if you are not able to service all of your clients, this is a great way to just go ahead and service as many people as you possibly can.
What do you think are the first steps for someone to find their courage? Like for you, someone asked you that question. Is it looking in the past of other times that you have been courageous to tap in that, to be courageous, to have courage for today? How do you do that? What are the process for you?
That's a great question. It's a great question. And I'm asked that all the time. The first thing is really looking at your things you have gone through that have been difficult or challenging or hardships, and looking at how you made it through that or how you overcame those things. A lot of those things have been just dismissed as, just great strategies of survival. But what if you had a different perspective on that and actually saw that you were strong? Some people don't make it through that. Mm-hmm. And if you see that you were able to make it through some of these difficult times in life, that'll give you and you can label it as strong, brave, courageous, then moving forward in life and whatever you're going to face isn't so scary, because you know that you have made it through. You are strong, you are courageous. So that would probably be the first step. Now the second step would be, let's say you're facing something very challenging in the moment, and you don't have time to look back and say, when was I courageous? I got to deal with this right now. It's just connecting. It's inside. Your courage is inside. So it's connecting to your human spirit, your heart, and knowing that we are stronger than we think we are. Yeah. So it's kind of getting out of your head, going to the heart, really, unless it's something real dangerous, then you have some, your brain is involved because you need some strategic strategies. But knowing that it's inside of us, and ask for those answers. Say, what do I do? How can I get through this? And be quiet, be in the present time. And you'll be able to do things you didn't think you could do.
So some people are like, you didn't really write your book, but I'm like, yes, I did, because the stories are mine. Yeah. The tips and tricks and everything I write about in the Lucky Formula is all mine. It's all my stuff. And it's all true. And basically, so a lot of people are like, is it true? Is there any BS in there? And I'm like, no, actually, it's all true.
I think people have a different idea of what a ghostwriter is. Some people think a ghostwriter writes a book for you, and that's not really the case. A lot of times a ghostwriter is an editor and a book coach. So they're just pulling the story out of you. And book coach kind of sounds better than a ghostwriter, because ghostwriter back in the day was like, oh, I'll write it for you. But that's not really what they do. They're actually coaching you to get the stories out, helping you with the formula, and making sure you have the right chapter titles and stuff, because they've done books before.
That's
right?
Actually, yes, he was a book coach. I like that.
Yeah.
And that's actually true, right? So they would ask you the right questions to get the right answers out of you, you know, to make the book amazing. And I actually think, our team did an amazing job, and the story reads well. It's riveting. It's eye-catching. It's, people have told me that they can't put it down.
Let's dive into, what is the Lucky Formula?
The Lucky Formula is I plus E plus A equals luck. What does that mean? That means internal mastery, things like, your internal narrative, and things like, how do you speak to yourself? How do you treat people? So your internal self plus your external. So mastering your internal self plus mastering your external self. So that means nutrition, sleep, exercise, how you speak to other people, how you engage with other people, plus action, plus taking action. And I can get into greater details, but all that equals luck. So if you master your internal self, you master your external self, and you sprinkle action on top of that, you're going to get success or luck. It's interchangeable in this book.
What are some of the arts of storytelling that you have found? We'll talk about it in a business setting, or even that transcends when you're hanging around with friends, right? So they stay engaged. What is some of the art of storytelling that you've learned?
I love it. When I hear the art of storytelling, I think Who is it that this story needs to land for? Maybe in short-term rentals, we could start here. You look at a review of a property. Every single time someone that has come and stayed in your property leaves a review, that in and of itself is a story.
Yeah.
And you get your chance to respond to it in your version, and they have their version of it. And one of the things that you'll notice when you have a raving fan, because you crafted that experience beautifully, they will start to be those people that say, oh, you also, when you come to Mount Pleasant, Utah, you got to check this out. Or you go up to South Jordan, you got to go check that out because it was such a great experience overall. In business, if you can give a wow experience, not just meet their expectations, but exceed their expectations, you underpromise, overdeliver. That's one of the ways that you create a connection with your clients. So as far as the art of storytelling, let me expand it here a little bit more. Sometimes in business, we only have a moment to capture someone's attention. This is a way that any type of business can take and articulate a problem in the format of a story and allow their customer to say, that's me. I feel that. I see that. I hear that. And as soon as you can clearly articulate the problem with enough essence and evocative language, that you can have that problem come through and the customer can feel it, then you're not selling. All you're doing is serving. And I think that's the key to storytelling in marketing, in sales, is make sure that problem is clearly articulated. And there is an art here, but there's also a lot of science behind it too, because it's just human psychology. Thanks, Melanie, for that question. I love it. We could go way deeper on that if you want.
Yeah, because it's really finding the problem, articulating it in a way that they understand it, and making them say, me too. That happened to me too.
Yes.
And feel that way, and having it not fall on deaf ears. But then it's also trying to tweak it towards that individual person or audience. So I think more often than not, we are talking to that one person. Like you say, you have to decide the who it's for. So many times when we're crafting books for our authors, we start with the who. Who is that exact person? And even when you're talking, like when you're going to be writing a book, if it shouldn't be like, oh, I'm talking to all the entrepreneurs in the world. No, they've got to narrow it down to it's Jack and he has 3 kids, and really dial that in. What else besides the who do you think that is key? The who and the problem. Is there anything else that we should really add to that list?
For sure. So there's a few different types of communication styles. One of the frameworks I love to use is actually one I got from my friend Woody Woodward. He keeps it very simple, and I want to give him attribution because it's very simple. Story, point, solution. It's literally like that. You share your story, and I have lots of frameworks to help you share that story really effectively. But after you share that story, you want to highlight the point or the connection back to why you're sharing that. And then as you've articulated that connection, you've really brought up the problem or the challenge that you're solving, then you highlight your solution. So share your story, there's a point to it, and then there's a solution. And I think that mini framework is a great way to ask yourself, is my business and my brand on story? Is it actually something that somebody else can hear, they can see, they can feel, they can touch it, and then they'll be able to relate it? Because I think part of a great story is not only being able to receive it and have it feel good and have it feel like, man, I'm with you, but they can also relate that story to other people. They can become a champion of your brand. If they don't know who you are, what you do, why you do what you do, it's really difficult for people to articulate why somebody else should refer you.
So tell us a couple things that make your program about fear different versus, like you say, make it go away. And I can understand that. It's almost fear and anxiety. You put it in your body and it's got to go somewhere. It can cause illnesses and can cause a lot of other issues.
Absolutely. Some of the issues that the repression or the pushing down of fear causes are depression, anxiety disorders, panic attacks, PTSD, underperforming. When people come to me to help them learn how to perform better in sports or just in their business or life, if I address the relationship with fear, usually that underperforming issue goes away. So do a lot of these other problems. And so what happens is, it's like we go through life and let's say we have joy, gratitude, forgiveness. Let's call them children, right? And then we also have fear, anger, sadness, like the bad, the negative children. And we tend to show off to the world, over here, but what do we do with these? We push them down into the basement. We lock the door. We throw away the key, and we think, okay, great, got rid of them. Momentary relief. Here I am showing off all these wonderful qualities, but what's happening in the basement is they're burning the house down, and they will not be denied, and they will come out in any way they possibly can. They'll hijack my mind and run their agenda through my thinking mind. Whenever my guard is dropped, like when I'm trying to sleep at night, that's when they'll take over. It's just a really bad idea to abuse a child of yours like that, in particular fear, because fear is such a big deal in our lives.
Thing I did was I was looking at the customer journey. So in our case, the student journey, because I really wanted to make sure that people had a great experience when they came to us. That was the first and foremost thing that I had to start with. And it was a complete mess when I took over the school. If you bought a course, you didn't even get email confirmation of it. It was like that bad. So I was like, okay, I have a lot of work to do here. So I just started ripping that apart. And then I thought, okay, I don't like the platform that it's on. So I completely redid the platform. And I thought, okay, I don't like the way that we deal with customer support. So I ripped that up. And then I slowly but surely felt that I'd got to the stage that I thought the student experience was good. And then I thought, now I'm going to start focusing on the marketing. And I taught myself digital marketing while I was on maternity leave. My children just fed for hours and hours. I was always on the sofa with breastfeeding babies. And so I thought, okay, they're asleep on me. What else can I do? So I started reading all these blogs and ebooks and learning all about digital marketing. And it just enthralled me. And so I figured out how to launch, how to set up a business, how to basically get myself out there and get visible. And once I had that student experience the way I wanted it to be, then I started actually launching it into the world. And yeah, it just flew overnight, to be honest. The first launch I did, we brought in about $50,000 worth of sales. And at that point, I quit my day job and I was like, we're going for it. And that was that.
That's awesome. And it's great that, took the time to educate yourself, because I think that's one of the things that I know in one of the businesses that I owned in the past. We bought the business and then we just let the management that was in place already when we bought it just keep running it for a while. And we didn't really educate ourselves on a lot of things and just let them run it into the ground until we were like, okay, wait, let me learn a little bit more about this and let's make sure that they're doing what they're supposed to do. And then we had to get on the management. And like you said, then you focus on customer experience and then you focus on marketing. So I love the order of the way that you did it, because a lot of times people will just go straight to marketing and the customers have horrible experience and your business goes down. So.
No, absolutely. You need to get that right. You need to get that nailed, because if your customers aren't happy, they're not going to be coming back, and they certainly won't promote you through word of mouth. And I will say that the majority of our sales have come through organic marketing and word of mouth over the last years since I've been in the school. So that goes to show that, if people are happy, it just, it spreads and it grows because of that.
So tell us the 3 stages of influence as you're going through this whole thing. You're starting out, you got a podcast, you really think you're going to have nobody watching it, like this guy that you talked about, but then he blew up. So walk us through that phase.
Yeah, so the 3 stages of influence are get seen, get noticed, and get known. So when you first start out and you get out there and you're starting to, let's say you're getting interviewed on some podcasts, you've launched your own podcast, so you're out there, you're doing a little bit, maybe taking some chunks of that content that you're creating, putting it on social media, and people start to see you. Right? So they say, oh, I've seen that guy, I've seen that gal around, but they don't really know exactly what you do. And a lot of people get stuck at that stage, right? But if you're focused enough and you really identify what your clear and compelling idea is for your business, then you start talking about, and all of your public, persona is really based around one thing, you're going to start to cut through that noise. And you'll go from just being seen to getting noticed, right? People start to take notice of you and they start to link you up with that idea, right? Matt's the micro-famous guy. I don't really know exactly what that means, but I've seen it around and I've seen the brand, and they start to connect you with your idea. But there comes a point, and in the book, there's an illustration of somebody kind of pushing the rock up to the crest of a hill. And that's what I would call that tipping point of influence. It's you're getting seen, you're getting noticed, but then you start to hit this tipping point where you become known. And that's when the rock starts to roll down the other side of the hill, which is the nice part. It starts to build momentum, you start to get word of mouth, and really what happens is the market agrees with you that you are that idea, you are known for one thing. So one of the best examples is John Maxwell. So we all know John Maxwell. He's written, leadership books since before I was in high school. His leadership book was literally the textbook for one of my high school classes. I guarantee you, if John Maxwell comes out with a book tomorrow, the word leadership or leaders probably going to be in the title, and we all know it, right? So if you're planning an event and you want somebody to come in and speak on leadership, odds are you're thinking of John Maxwell. It's him and a whole bunch of other people. So we think about that and we admire that. John Maxwell equals leadership, but that was by design. That was intentionally done, and he keeps on writing books, and his entire marketing system is based around reinforcing that one idea. So that's the goal, is we want to become known for one thing. So get seen, get noticed, get known. Those are the 3 stages. If we keep hammering away at one idea and putting one idea out there into the world, we're eventually going to get linked to that idea the way John Maxwell is linked to leadership. That's the goal.
I really like that you talked about the niche, right? So he only has 10 or 20,000, you said, total, but he's getting 10,000 downloads a month.
Yeah.
It's focusing on that really tiny, small niche. I had a client that sold horse footing, which I didn't even know what horse footing was, but it's actually sand that horses dance on.
Okay.
So how many horses do you know that dance? It's called dressage. No one even knows that word. Like, it's so micro niched, but they are the known people for getting your horse footing. So the Prince of Abu Dhabi, when he needs horse footing for his dressage arena, he's calling them, right? So you got to have that really micro niche. I loved how you talked about niche and how you will be known for that. I just love that.
Yeah, I think it's just we're coming into an interesting world. I think that relatively gone are the days of just coming out and competing head on with whoever has the biggest brand in your space and just getting there on enthusiasm and energy and going, oh, I'm going to take over that space. And that's not how human beings work. We all have that bucket in our minds. And if you're not the top of that bucket, you're almost irrelevant. And it's only gotten worse the more things have gone online. And I think people kind of underestimate that about other human beings. They have to be able to put you into a category, and either you're first in that category or you're way down the list, because a lot of people don't have room for more than one name in a lot of categories in their mind. Everything is not a car where people can remember 17 brand names off the top of their head.
So what are some of the key questions you ask every quarter to a client?
So I think a lot of the times it's reevaluating how we did that last quarter and to see if what we're doing is effective or not. Then asking, hey, are we on the right track to achieve your big vision? And so being able to see that through numbers, I think the numbers don't lie, and seeing if that supports them financially to make the next step. And so it's really focusing on the numbers, and a lot of that we look at the stats of, hey, how are the ads doing? How is your website converting? How much sales did you do? How many phone calls did you get? Where's the missing piece? And being able to reverse engineer that to see what we really need to focus on for the next quarter.
Yeah, I think that's great for any business, the focusing on asking those questions overall, what's working, what's not working, are we getting our sales in? And so many companies, individuals, they get lost in that process. Even if you're working for yourself, like you're a realtor or somebody just in sales, and you're kind of still an entrepreneur, even though you're under the umbrella of a company, that we don't stop to take that time to evaluate every quarter and say, what's working, what's not working, how can we adjust, how can we move forward? What's great about you is you give that accountability, not just for the social media. It makes them kind of think about everything for business, because how does that relate to your sales? And they may go, this other thing in sales is not necessarily working for us either.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's a holistic approach, because we believe digital, online, social media is a part of that. It's a part of all aspects of your business, and we need to be able to integrate that so it is effective. And so it's kind of being able to see it in a holistic perspective, because if our client's not doing well, then we're not going to do well either.
Yeah. Got to have that evaluation process. I like that you do that. A lot of times, like you said, Melanie, if you're a solopreneur, you don't really do that. So having a marketing company who does that for you and kind of reevaluates and says, okay, what did we do? What worked? What didn't? I think that's huge. You got to have that.
Absolutely.
And Kevin, what do you see as the biggest mistakes when you get a new client in that they're making with their website?
Man, there are quite a few. And I think a lot of our clients come to us with a website that's not mobile friendly. And being able to create a separate website that is mobile friendly is extremely crucial, because half people are looking on their phones. And how are people finding your website? Is that social media? Is that Google? Where are you browsing? And I think that's the first step, is mobile friendly. The second thing is really clarifying your message. A lot of times I'll go on a website and I don't know what they do within the first 3 seconds. And that's a problem, because people leave your website within 3 seconds if they don't know what you do. And so it's very important to clarify that and to be able to take your website visitor through a story. How is this going to help their life? And if it is, how can they contact you? And I think that's the biggest mistake that I see, is not clarifying that and not being mobile friendly.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think, every business owner should open up their website and do the 3-second rule and do it for themselves, and then have someone else do it. So look at it for 3 seconds, and then go to a different place or look away and say, okay, what is it? What do I think they do? What do I think? Who do I think that they offer services to, and what do they do? And how do I?
This is a good test, and I'll tell my clients to do.
Yeah, do I want to find out more, or do I want to just go and look at something else? Would I want to dive in more and look at it? And asking other people that, to have them look at your website and do a 3-second rule is huge, because you get a lot of feedback, and then you find out, I guess we didn't portray the message we wanted to portray.
Exactly. And I would say a good 3 questions to ask is go to a coffee shop and then pull up your website, give them the laptop and say, hey, can you tell me what this website does, how it will be important to your life, or will it be important to your life, and where can you get it? If you can answer that within 3 seconds, you're solid. But if not, you have some work to do.
Hey, are you looking to increase your revenue, build credibility, and elevate your brand? This podcast is brought to you by Elite Online Publishing, an innovative publishing and full-spectrum marketing company. They will publish and market your book to make it a #1 bestseller. Becoming an author is the best way to market your business. So contact them at eliteonlinepublishing.com today. All of their authors become #1 bestsellers.